Hey, Facebook friends and Tell It Like It Is fans, I just want to say hi. I'm here at the Blog and Video Con and stumbled across a genuine celebrity. And when I say genuine, I mean like television, movies, soap operas, the whole 9 yards, Sandra Dee Robinson.
Hello.
And it's my pleasure to meet you. We've never met before, but obviously through connections. As we all know, it's about who you know as much as it is what you know. And so through Tim and through Craig Duswalt, we all had a chance to meet Sandra today.
Yeah.
Now, I know everybody talks to you about being in the movies and being a movie star and being in front of the camera and in front of the large crowds and all that kind of stuff. But I'm really curious, you mentioned just kind of in passing in your presentation about interviews, your work with horses.
Yes.
And you made a very powerful statement. I believe your statement was something along the lines of, you might have a relationship problem with boundaries with humans, but
Yes.
when a horse knows that boundary problem, it becomes very, very clear.
Take it seriously.
So tell me a little bit about, A, how did you come to that conclusion? And B, what does your work with horses look like now?
And well, first of all, it's confusing because people are like, you're a communication coach. What do you mean you work with horses? And I found that horses
They're really
are,
hard to train to communicate, by the way. No, I'm kidding.
they have a hard problem like pronouncing the S.
Yes.
It's just no, they don't speak our language, which is why they're so effective for teaching communication. Because you'll see statistics that'll say 85% of our communication is nonverbal anyway. So it's really our energy that the animals are reading. Horses, being prey animals, are very sensitive to that. So they will react to you exactly as you are showing up in the world. That's why they're brutally honest.
Without a word.
Without a word, but they will react. And it's my job as a facilitator to be able to explain that to you and to help you change your energy so that you can then become a better leader. Because as you were saying, I mentioned the boundary thing. And if I, as a coach, were to say to you, hey, I can see that you have some boundaries with this relationship that's in your life, you'll get defensive about it or you'll come up with excuses. And if a horse reacts to the lack of boundaries,
Right.
you're going to accept that. There's something about the feedback that you get in a very natural environment that allows
they're
people
a few
to take it in
thousand
and then
pounds.
change it. Yeah,
They can be a little intimidating.
Yeah, it's like a 1,200-pound billboard that is basically saying, hey, this is an issue that you have. And a lot of times, whatever is happening, I primarily work with women in groups. I work with men individually, but I work with women in groups. And so we do retreats and things. And a lot of times I'll have a woman that will say they're exhausted. They're managing people, they're running a business, and they're exhausted. And that will show up in the way they ask their horse to do something and maybe pursue the horse too much, put too much energy forth. They're already
Because they're trying to
getting what
control
they
the
want.
moment.
They're trying to control too much. And so when that happens, the horse lets them know, and I can point it out, and then they can learn to adjust their ask. So they learn to adjust the amount of energy they're spending, and we try to cut back on how they're managing and how much energy they are actually wasting. We all have an energy bucket in the beginning of the day.
Right.
So there's only so much in it. And at some point, it's going to be depleted. If you run hot all day long, you're going to deplete it too fast.
Okay, so as a John Maxwell coach, which is what I do,
Yes.
one of the things that I notice about people, John says it this way, he said, the law of the picture tells us that people do what people see. So as an example, when you're in that environment, there's a quid pro quo that is unspoken in body language, in posture, in aggression versus not aggression.
Yes.
And a lot of times, especially women who have had to step up into a leadership role, a lot of times they feel like they've got to be more intentional, more aggressive, more over the top.
Yeah, I do
How does
find
the
that.
horse react to that?
It depends. Honestly, you're building a relationship with that individual horse. So a lot depends on the horse's personality.
Wait. So what you're saying is it's not based on the fact that it's a horse any more than it's based on the fact that it's a race or a gender.
Right,
Wow.
exactly.
So it's about individual
when
relationship and
somebody-
respect.
Yes, very much so. So if somebody walks in, and we get this a lot, people that don't know horses or may even be afraid of horses show up, and I'll say, go build a relationship with your horse that you have chosen. That choosing of the horse is also a big, important aspect. So they've chosen this partner, and I'll say, go get to know them. And people will turn to me like absolutely dumbfounded and go, I don't know what to say or how to get it to like me. I'm like, huh. So when you hire a new employee or you run into somebody on the street or you're on your first date, do you know? So how they approach that, equine partner is going to kind of be indicative of how they show up in the world in general.
Okay, so how about that
So
person though
that
that doesn't,
Right.
they've never even acknowledged, hey, I have an addiction, or
Right.
or I'm dealing with PTSD. So because you see them all the time, they're on the street and you see them overreact in traffic,
Yes.
or they blow up at the grocery store
And that's
line, or they get
communication.
mad because the guy at Waffle House charged them $1 more than he was
Right.
supposed to, and you're like, whoa, why did you
That
react
blew
so
up.
bad? Yeah.
But, I had a bit of that because my childhood wasn't, I had a mother that was very rough growing up.
Okay.
Not loving, not actually capable of loving. My father balanced that a bit, but I was with her more. So I get that response. I actually understand that a lot. And I do see that. And what ends up happening is when you're building that relationship, we literally have something that we talk about called pressure and release. We experience that all the time, not just when you're working with a horse and you're training a horse, but if I walk up to you and I say, hey, great to meet you, I put my hand forward.
Yeah.
This was
There's
pressure.
a reaction. Yeah.
This was pressure to you. You relieved it by shaking my hand. That's
Okay.
what we do.
Oh,
So
wow. So how do you see that when you, let's say for an example, you work with a previous rape victim, or someone who's been abused maybe in a domestic relationship, or someone who has had a really rough, maybe they've come out of prison or something, so
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of negative energy and negative baggage in their life to begin with, but they're trying to cope and transition that.
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to make sure that I make really clear, I do equine assisted coaching. It's based on a therapy model. The wonderful therapy model that I base this on and I'm certified in is called natural lifemanship. They do pure therapy. So if somebody shows up like you're describing PTSD,
Right?
it's people that are recovering from abuse, even addiction, those
Right.
things. It's incredibly powerful therapy. But if I was doing that type of deep emotional work, I would have a psychotherapist next to me. When you ask somebody for something, or you're in an environment where you're bossing someone, or you're asking for something in a relationship, you're creating that pressure. So say I'm a mom and I'm asking my teenage daughter to go clean the room, and she ignores me.
Yes. They
So-
do that.
Right? They do that. So you have a choice.
That's
you
when you
can
sell
either,
them. Oh.
And that leads us back to the therapy. But you have a choice. You can either escalate or you can back off. Now, when we're working with the horses, we can actually emulate that. So somebody that is trying to find that balance of how to ask, what is appropriate, how to react in a situation that maybe isn't going your way. Because if somebody does have a problem with that pressure and release, it's going to show up exactly as you say, getting mad at the person at Waffle House, or getting super frustrated. And I know I was angry a lot. And since I've just been around the horses a lot, and there's a biological reason for that as well. But being around the horses has allowed me to be able to work that pressure valve.
Right.
So that I have a client I'm working with right now. She said, all I want is to be able, an abusive childhood, as we were discussing. And she said, I just want to be able to, as we were calling it, the faucet. Learn how to turn the faucet on and off. And she said, I want to be,
And at some
I
point
want to have
control the
grace,
flow even, yes.
Grace and flow. She goes, I want to have grace and ease when I'm working, as opposed to go, exhaustion, and fall apart, and have that bit of anger that pops up all the time. It's just not good for relationships. It's not good for our bodies. So even though what I do isn't therapy, there is a therapeutic aspect to it for sure. Just getting out in nature, I think, is a very therapeutic thing. Getting around the horses, the biological aspect of that is that they have a much larger electromagnetic field than we do.
Yes.
So when we're around them, and studies have been done that are amazing, where they have taken an individual that has an elevated blood pressure, elevated heart rate, place them in a herd of horses which was calm. Horses are 98% of the time calm especially when they're out in a field. And that individual's blood pressure actually lowered because they have a compassionate heart rate. So it's really interesting when people say, if they're horse girls, they say, I feel better when I'm with my horse. There's now a biological reason.
Well, they're connected in that way.
Yeah.
But just like they say, the horse and the rider, there's a unique relationship to that. Just like there is a soldier and his dog that sniffs out bombs, or an officer and his canine. There's a unique relationship that has to do with the soul tie, if you will.
That's leadership.
Yeah.
That's leadership. So at the heart of everything that we do with the women leaders and the men that I work with, when you're working with the horses, that pops up all the time. So
do you find that the horse picks the partner as much as the partner picks the horse?
Yes, and that's a great question, because we work on and exercise on intuition to help you choose the equine partner. for the day.
Right.
And so I say tap in, and we have some women, in fact, that just have shut that down. Maybe they came from corporate where it was told not to use, don't use
Right.
that. So they have to reconnect with that. That's something we all have. And it has been shown to me that if they have their instinct to go with a particular equine partner and they choose another one, it won't work. I've actually had the wrong horse actually shut down, and I can look at a horse and tell when it's not going to engage.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm so sorry, let me go change your horse out.
And sometimes it's as easy as the ears and the direction of the eyes.
They won't.
But once that neck
not
starts
there.
to move, they're done. they're
not
kind of
there.
telling you, sorry.
But what's interesting is when I will go to change the horse out, that woman will say, well, it wasn't really my first choice. Okay.
That tells
So
me
who was
everything.
your first choice? Yeah. And then when they come back in, I have seen horses that I think I know their personality react completely different against type with a particular human being because that's what the human needed at the time.
Okay, so how often do you see that relationship modeled in their other human relationships? So you say you work with groups of women, so I can imagine, in any group, you're going to get that group dynamic that works where some person feels like they're in control. I have fun with it by sitting in the back of the room, and I don't let them know who I am, and I just watch. Someone always takes over. Someone always takes charge. Someone is always just the observer, but they have all the ideas. And that's
funny.
And almost every dynamic, it's like they're all 5-year-olds again. If there's nobody who's claiming to be in charge, somebody's going to take over and everybody else is going to act like they're 5.
I actually see the retreats that I do with women are small groups. And instead
6
of
to
that,
10 or smaller?
6.
Okay.
Yeah, 6, 8, 10 would be tops, and that's for the corporate groups. But we like the private retreats that I do with individual women, 6. And what happens is that I see more of a support. They support each other.
Interesting. Okay.
Because all of a sudden they may come in with that dynamic, but I see it dissipate because they recognize in each other the need to support. And so I have actually had women that don't know each other by the end of the day become like, I want to say BFFs, or just like really bond, and knowing that they need to be together and that there is that power of, say, like a sisterhood to be able to support each other. Yeah.
And that's a whole different kind of a dynamic.
Yeah, I think the horses kind of take away that normal sense of group dynamics. It's really interesting.
Okay, so to wrap things up, there was one other comment that you made when you talked about the idea of, especially, and I think Craig Duswalt mentioned it as well, the idea of being on, so to speak, being that actor, that actress portraying something. So how hard was it for you to break that almost natural, you've trained yourself into the response of, I'm in character, this is who I am.
Yeah.
How hard was it to break into that and find your own true identity and say, you know what, this is the who that I am, and I'm just going to be me, and I'm going to be real and authentic, and knowing that, the horse, for an example, figures that out really quick, no matter what your pretense is.
Well, that's just it. The horse is going to read if you are what we say incongruent. If you're not in alignment, if your voice and your actions aren't aligning with who you are, they're not comfortable. They don't see you as a leader, so they're going to disengage. Because I was acting to avoid being me. So I didn't that was my safe zone, because I didn't think I had the worth.
So it was a control of a comfort zone, not just this is what I'm paid to do, so I'm pursuing it.
My survival mechanism.
Wow.
So that's been the biggest journey of my life. And the blessing in going on that journey, believe it or not, was being born to a mother that couldn't be affectionate, love,
So it was kind of your catalyst.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm grateful that I was born to a not very nice mom.
But it really is amazing.
It was the journey, and I understand where people are when I go on. It took a lot. Oh my gosh, so much work, and because I think my curiosity, which I always say, and I'm sure you have it too, just listening to you talk, this insatiable curiosity for knowledge and understanding ourselves and understanding other people, I think is what probably propelled me on my journey even faster. And it's so much better to not have to hide that I'm actually to the point where I can go, no, I'm good. I'm not perfect, but I'm good. And when you stand with a horse and you say, I'm confident, and you're not, they won't align with you. If you say, I'm trying to be confident, they'll align.
I heard someone say, a teacher last night, she said, your destiny is more tied to your identity than it is to your education, your qualifications, or your competence. And it's amazing to me how many people, you hear fake it till you make it. You hear the idea of I'm going to set my aspirations and my goals out there, and those are good. Please set your goals and your aspirations, identify your dreams and go after them, but also understand that trying to pursue a dream that's not the who that you are is
It's not gonna
destructive, not only for you, but for everybody that you're trying to walk with or walk
Yes.
on or journey with to get there.
It's not
just,
gonna
it's
feel
not,
good.
yeah, it
It's
is
not
not
gonna
going to be
feel
right
good,
for
it's
you
not
or
gonna
them.
work.
And that is very indicative of those equine partnerships.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
if you're trying to be something to that horse, they're going to sense the pretense
Yeah.
and back away.
Whereas a human would, kind of go along with it.
Yeah, they're gonna
because
fake
they
it
don't
too.
want to hurt your feelings or anything like that, right? A horse will be like, oh, I don't want any part of this.
That's how you get those 15-year marriages that end in a
Yes.
what is the word, apathetic ending. They're like, we can still be friends, but this isn't going to work. And you're like, well, what happened there?
yeah.
Well, you were both pretending to be in a relationship to begin with. Jimmy Evans says, people always tell you marriage is 50-50. He said, if you each give 50%, you barely have 100% of a marriage. But if you'll both give 100%,
Yes.
then you'll have a real marriage. And if you're not ready to give 100%, then you're not ready for
Don't
a
do
marriage. I think the way he said it, he said, a marriage should be a race to die to self. The first one to give up everything for the other one wins. I was like,
Wow.
that's powerful. But that's kind of what you're looking for in the relationship with the equine. So how can people engage with you? And what does it take for somebody to schedule a retreat? Obviously, you've got a website, you've got places for them to go.
Yeah.
Is the equine therapy, those small groups and the retreats, is that kind of your contribution back to the world, or is that your vocation now as well? Is it kind of all rolled into one?
It's kind of rolling into one, but I definitely, my heart is definitely in this work because I think it's just a way of serving the self with a capital S. I think there's so much stress, even people that we know of, my husband and I know of, that on the outside are very successful. They have a hard time dealing, so they're like self-medicating at night. They're drinking,
Right.
vodka to go to sleep. They're taking pills, or they're doing both, or it's something else. And sometimes it's a self-destructive behavior. But I feel if they know that there's another healthier option to be able to manage and regulate those emotions and deal with things and really help to maybe save those marriages that are.
Well, and there's so much truth to that. I mean,
together and-
Kanye West just recently came out and said, I used to tell you what the Hennessy did for me, what the fashion industry did for me, what the music industry did for me.
Yeah.
Now I just want to tell you what Jesus has done for me.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, a guy who was already on tour, he's been in some of the biggest places in media as a Christian comedian, has had to back away from everything because he realized and was willing to admit finally he has a sexual addiction. And so he's been sexually abusing women and utilizing his status and celebrity to do that. But, the list is on and on and on. Matt Lauer,
Yeah.
Bill O'Reilly. I mean, the list of the number of people who, as you put it, they're self-medicating with other types of addictions. I spent
Yeah.
25 years addicted to porn because of my childhood and was able to come out of that. But it is amazing how many people get caught up in these addictions and they don't want to deal with self. They want to fake it till you make it. They want to put on airs. They want to surround themselves with other people, pat them on the back and go, you've done such an awesome job. And you're like, yay, I can be fake with everyone and it's okay.
But no, it's not okay because you can't be fake with everyone.
So how's the first way that they can engage with you?
Google me, SandraDeeRobinson.com will come up, and that's probably the easiest starting point. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. So I'm on social media. You can
And
definitely.
I've tagged her in this particular video on Facebook. So if you're on
Good.
Facebook, you can go right there and
Yeah.
visit right now. Please feel free to share it as many places as you'd like to. We're glad to have the exposure. And we're not trying to sell anything here, just having a conversation among leaders. And I hope it's been beneficial to you as well.
Yeah, I hope
if I
so.
can catch Craig, I'm going to get Craig Duswalt to come as well because
Of
he's
the
working
last
on a new
one.
project.
Of
That would be
last
awesome.
one. Yes.
Sandra, it's very nice to meet you. Thank you
you
for taking the time.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you. Tell it like it is. And I will be back in a moment with Craig Duswalt if I can find him.